Hi, I'm Joshua Finn from J&H Aerospace, and this is the build video for the J&H Aerospace Junior Flyer. This is a 40 centimeter span airplane that's oriented for beginners at indoor. That's a little lighter than our Pinaflyer and has higher, larger wing area, so it flies very nice and slowly. It just gives you that nice indoor flying feel. I actually am able to fly this just barely in my living room. It's a little heavy for that, but it actually can be slowed down enough that you can fly it in a large living room. This airplane is legal for Science Olympiad Division A competitions, at least most of the ones that are being held across the country. So Division A is on a state-by-state basis, so they're not constrained to hold to a specific set of rules. However, almost all of the Division A competitions I've seen use the rules that you have a 40 centimeter span. I want to say it's a 10 centimeter wing chord. I don't have all those dimensions off the top of my head. I designed the airplane to those dimensions, and it flies very nicely, so it's good as a sport flyer, also as a contest flyer for those types of competitions. For those of you looking for a Division A airplane, you will have to provide some input for children that age, because it is a large, lightweight indoor airplane. It does require proper storage, so you need to have a Tupperware container of some sort to store the airplane in, and all of those types of things. But the result is a very nice flying airplane, and it's very robust in terms of the fact that you can carry quite a bit of excess weight and it'll still fly well. So the rubber that we supply is 3/32 rubber, which is very thick for what you're running with a 5.5-inch prop. So the airplane will overclimb most sights. However, that gives you a nice performance margin. So should you have a student who's able to get a little bit higher performance as far as is able to build out a little cleaner, you can run thinner rubber. Honestly, down to 1/16 rubber, this will still climb with decent authority. So lots of options there. But anyway, this is the build video, so with that introduction, we're going to look at what tools are required to build the airplane, and then we'll go through what's in the kit, and then we'll build the airplane. So the tools that are required for building this airplane are shown here. So you'll need super glue of some sort, or other glues. So I use super glue for most of my assemblies. For young people, this may be a little bit too advanced, so you might want to move on to something like white glue for most of the construction. The one part that you will still need this type of glue is for the rear hook that plugs in. And you'll need some sort of cement or something, or CA, something of that nature, to attach the carbon fiber tail boom, because balsa will not, white glue will not secure those parts of the airplanes, but everything else just about can handle that. This is CA accelerator. It hardens the glue a little faster when it becomes reticent to harden, and you'll see some scenarios where that's very useful. Scissors are going to be needed in a few places, mainly for trimming rubber motors. You'll need some pliers to insert the rear peg that or rear hook that you'll press into the fuselage, and then you'll need wire cutters to clip that to size. I recommend an electronic scale for weighing your rubber motors, because for most of the Division A competitions, you're limited to 1.5 grams of rubber. Get a winder of some sort. This is these just became available again for Division A competition. This is gross overkill. We sell a plastic winder on our website that's very good quality. It's probably the most popular thing for Science Olympiad. It's the K&P 15-to-1 winders. 10-to-1. And then you'll need some sort of rubber lubricant. This is Dow Corning 33, which is very good quality rubber lubricant. We sell rubber lubricant packs on our website. They are not this particular rubber lubricant. They are more than sufficient for the rubber, and you'll notice no loss of performance using that particular lubricant. One additional thing that you will need for this airplane, this is 3M Super 77 spray adhesive. You will need this to attach the plastic covering. You can use Elmer's glue stick, but it requires you to manually rub it on the flying surfaces, which can, if you're not careful, you can damage them this way. This gets it all done in one fell swoop, and you're done. The last item, I recommend this for flying these airplanes, but you can work without it. and young people in Division A will not be able to assemble this. This is the torque meter that we sell. So if your students need a torque meter, you will have to assemble it for them, because they're not going to be able to manipulate pliers to bend the wire here or back here. For middle school and high school students, they don't have any trouble navigating this, and it's very popular with them. But for Division A, students are usually going to not have the strength required to bend the wire in the ways that's necessary. Particularly back here, this is a very tight tolerance bend, and if you don't get it right, the filament will pull through and it'll break the torque meter. Within your kit, you're going to have all the parts and pieces needed to assemble this airplane. So what we'll do is we'll go through everything that's required. You're going to have a 5 1/4 inch propeller assembly. You're going to have Mylar covering for the airplane. For young people that struggle with the plastic covering, you can use tissue paper, and we'll talk about the steps required to do that later. You'll have a bag of black rubber O-rings, 16 feet of 3/32 rubber. I have some clay nose weight. This is a piece of 025 piano wire that you'll use for your rear hook. We've included plenty of it in case something goes wrong. You can snip it off and start again. You'll have 4 of these 1/4 inch square balsa sticks. 2 of them are short, 2 of them are long. This thick piece of balsa here is your motor stick, and it includes your wing saddle. These are your wing posts. These are plywood. You'll have a carbon fiber tail boom. It's just a non-tapered straight piece of carbon fiber. And then last thing is that you'll have your wing spar set. So these are your wing spars, tail spars, a pair of dihedral gauges, tail ribs, rudder, and your wing ribs. You'll notice one of the wing ribs is shorter than the others. To get started with this build, what we're going to do is we're going to build the wing first, and then we'll proceed to everything else. I have a piece of parchment paper spread out here so I don't glue this to the table, and so you should be able to just crack these wing spars out. So what you'll gently do is just kind of bend the wood here where the little tabs are, where it's not cut all the way through. And those retain these spars in your carrier sheet. And we do monitor the wood fairly closely to make sure it cuts all the way through. You may have a few places where it puts up some resistance, so don't be afraid to take a razor blade if you see a spot where it's kind of putting up some resistance, and just go in there and help the piece of wood come free from that. Don't push it, or you could break some things loose. So just relax and carefully work it loose. Then what we'll do is separate these 2 spars, because they have little tabs again. And what we're going to do is we're going to set these so that the little notches are facing each other. So the notches should not be on the outside, they should be on the inside. What we will then do is break out these wing ribs right here. You should have 1 extra rib in here. We'll go ahead and we'll pop all of them out together. There is a short rib, and the short rib is going to go in the middle. And then we'll pop 2 more of these loose. And at the front of them, you will see there's a little bit of extra bits and pieces that you want to make sure come loose. Now, it's important for you to notice on these ribs that the front section is more curved than the rest of the rib. So you want to be very mindful of that as you're assembling the airplane. So the curved section we want all on the same side, because that's going to be the front of the wing. Now, what I recommend, my CA glue here has clogged up a little bit. What I recommend is installing the second to the outermost ribs here, and then we'll install the center rib, and then you can drop the rest of the ribs in place. And you want to use only enough glue to get the part bonded in there. So if you think you're not using enough glue, you're probably still using almost too much. Now sometimes these ribs will put up a little bit of resistance sliding in there, so you just want to work with them and just carefully work the ribs in here. Don't try to crush it in there. Just like that. Now if you're having a lot of trouble getting the ribs in there, don't be afraid to, in the vertical plane, so the rib is curved like this, so in this direction, pinch the rib a little bit, and then it'll make it slide in just a little bit easier. Balsa wood, despite my best efforts in vetting the thickness of the wood, balsa wood cutters do not do a great job of maintaining exact thickness on the wood, and so sometimes it ends up thicker or thinner than it's supposed to be. And what you want to make sure is that the wing's not twisting, and mine is a little bit. Normally that's not a problem, but every once in a while. And then what I'm going to do is take that shorter rib, so you compare it to another one, make sure, yes indeed, it is shorter. That rib is right here in the middle. Just like that. Now the outer ribs don't have have exactly a notch that they fit into. They just simply sit here in that sort of notch on the outside, and they'll lay in there. If you are building this with white glue, you may have to weigh this down or something to hold that rib in place while the glue dries. And then you'll have 4 remaining ribs here. Again, make sure that the sharply curved part of the rib is at the front. And so the rest of these should drop in here real easy. And I am pinching them to make sure they fit in there well. And there is a completed wing for your junior flyer. Next, we're going to take these long strips right here. These are our horizontal stab spars. And we'll break out the stab ribs here, which are these little guys right here. Now, if you look at these very closely, you'll see that they're a little more curved here than on the rest of them. You may want to take a black marker or something to record that that's the front. And I'm going to go ahead and pinch the fronts and backs of all these ribs before I pop them loose, because this wood seems a little bit thicker than usual. So we'll set those down facing that direction. Pop my stab spars apart like so. Actually, I'll set them here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue the center rib, and then I'll do the outer two. Make sure it goes all the way in, or you'll be over your cord limit that's specified by the rules as far as the width of this flying surface. And there you go. So that's your horizontal stab completely assembled. The last part that we have to assemble here for the flying surfaces is the rudder. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop this set of parts loose. Take your time doing this. These are very, very lightweight. So the rudder needs to be, it's actually called a vertical stab, and I've already popped one of the parts loose from the rest of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through what parts are here. So this part that has the two triangles that are just, the ends are straight up and down, that is the back of your fin. So we're going to set it right here. The short piece right here with nothing on it is the bottom. It has a bevel on this side. The bevel goes at the front. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that bevel and we're going to set it right here, like that, with the bevel facing this direction. This long piece also will have a bevel at this end. And so it is the bottom of your fin. I think I said this was the bottom, this is the top, this is the bottom. So we want the bevels going like so. And then you'll have one remaining piece. The bevel that goes this way, that is going to go at the bottom, and then the one that goes like so, that's going to be at the top, just like this. And you'll see that those parts start to line up. So what I'm going to do is the parts that don't have the tabs on them, I'm going to put glue like so, and like so. And you may want to weigh this down so it doesn't wander around as you're doing that. With the super glue, it tends to take hold fairly quickly. The one catch is that means you don't get any opportunity to correct errors. Oh, sorry. This is your completed vertical tail. Fin, rudder, whichever you're thinking, calling it. Technical term is the vertical tail. At this time, you need to make a decision in terms of your building as to whether you're going to cover with plastic, which is supplied in the kit, or if you're going to cover with tissue, as you would cover like a laser cut planes mountain lion, or the J&H Aerospace Pinaflyer, or something of that nature. The tissue paper is sometimes a little easier for little hands to work with if you're doing Division A work, so consider that. In both cases, you will be able to cover the airplane using 3M77. However, the catch is the plastic takes this bend here at the dihedral brake fairly easily. So what you need to do is, if you're covering the airplane in Mylar, follow what we're doing here. If you are covering in tissue, you're going to want to set the dihedral per the instructions later in this video before you add the tissue paper. So what you'll have to do is take glue stick and rub it around the area of the wing that you're going to cover, the center section, lay down tissue paper over that area, and then you don't have to trim it to size yet other than out here at the edges. Then you can lay tissue here and here, and you'll be good to go. Tail surfaces, same story. Just put down glue stick on it and lay the tissue on there, trim it to size. You can use scissors or a razor blade, and you get a good result there. But again, we're going to show you how to do the Mylar covering, and so what we're going to do next is we're going to assemble the covering frame. Take these 1/4 inch balls of sticks and arrange them like so. So you want to have these pieces on the outside, on the inside. Let me make sure I'm telling you that part correctly, because that is kind of sensitive. No, I'm sorry. These go on the outside. Unfortunately, I sell a lot of different kits with different covering frames, and so sometimes hard to remember which way each one goes. So what we're going to do is we're going to put glue on the outside here. And there we go. You may want to take a scrap of wood and dip some CA accelerator here. Notice I don't spray the CA accelerator on. I like to dip it. Gives you a little bit better control over it. Now at this point, we can take some Vaseline, petroleum jelly, whatever, and take a napkin. We're going to use the napkin to smear a layer of this around all the top of this. This time, we'll set the covering frame aside. Make sure that the Vaseline doesn't rub up against anything, because it will make a mess. Wipe the Vaseline off of your hands too. Also, one thing, don't get the Vaseline on your rubber. It will eat it like acid. This Mylar covering is a little bit fragile. It's not too bad, but you do need to be kind of gentle as you unravel it. So you'll see you have a large piece of it here. Now, this part, you're going to panic when you see what I'm about to do, because what you need to do is take your covering and wad it up into a ball, literally like you're going to throw it in the trash. And spread it back out, and now wad it up again. So we want to thoroughly wrinkle this plastic. Now, should you come into a situation like this, where you end up with a bubble here like this, don't try to pop it or you'll break the covering. Now, at this point, it should be thoroughly wrinkled, and this allows you to spread the covering out. It's statically charged, so it will stick to the table. Take your time with this step. If you have a clean paintbrush, you can use it to spread the covering out. But just take your time with it. Make sure you don't have any glue on your fingers, obviously, because that'll catch on the covering too. Now you can take this covering frame, you can just drop it down here, like so. Press it down fairly hard. You want to make sure it really sucks that covering up. And now at this point, you can take a pair of scissors. Try not to do that. You can take a pair of scissors, if they're sharp, and cut the covering out like that, just so that you don't have excess flopping around. And there you go. You can then tighten the covering up a little bit more by just gently massaging it along. Particularly if you have it loose here, you can grab it by the edges and pull your thumbs out while pressing down, like this. And then you'll sometimes need to pull it in gently here. But just work your way around. A gentle touch is all that's required. And there you go. Set this up vertically against something. Don't lay it down or the static cling will suck the covering down, and all that effort you did to get a nice tight covering will be undone. Now at this point, you're going to go and spray your flying surfaces with 3M77. I'm not going to show that on video. There are a few videos, like our senior flyer build video, actually shows me going out and spraying the flying surfaces, so you can see an example. If you're not comfortable doing this, haven't done it before, what I recommend is go outside on a large piece of cardboard, lay your flying surfaces down, your wing, and your stab, and your vertical tail, and spray the 3M77 down from above, and that will give you a nice clean coat. The thing that you want to remember is the curved sides on the stab and the wing go up, so those are the side that you want the adhesive sprayed on. For your vertical tail, I normally cover the right side. You can cover either one and get good results. So don't sweat that too much if you get it on the wrong side. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go spray these down, and then we'll come back and we'll cover them. Okay, so I have surfaces with 3M77 on them, so what we have to do is lay them down very carefully. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently lay my wing right here. Adhesive is on the top side. If you get it upside down, it's going to stick to the table and it's all over. Stab, make sure the adhesive side is up. Like I said, if it's down, you'll never get it off the table. You'll have to use acetone or something like that to soften it, and then you'll take the finish off of whatever surface you're working on. Adhesive side up on that as well. Notice I've got these spaced fairly closely together, not too much so. Just slide my wing away from there so I can be away from all the messy stuff over here because I don't have a clean workspace like a smart person would. Now, I want to check that, and we need to bring this guy in closer. Same with our vertical tail. And now, notice I'm doing this with two hands. Covering is on the bottom of the frame. So we're lowering this down. Now notice I got this wing a little close to the edge here. That just means you'll have to be careful as you're working on this, but what you want to do is go around and either with your hands or with a brush or something, press the covering down against each of your flying surfaces. And I don't mean you press down hard, just gently. We're going around here and making sure that the covering contacts the adhesive everywhere. And now take a new, fresh razor blade and go along the edges of the film. We're just cutting that all loose. This part here is a little bit tricky. Where these are close together, so you want to come in here. Like I said, it's a little bit tricky. Once you get it started, it's okay. There we go. Nope. Not quite doing it. That's okay. We can trim off the excess with scissors later. So there's our stab. Looks like I didn't get any of that actually loose, so. What you can do is pull the film tight here and just zip that razor blade all the way down there. And you can also use scissors to cut off any excess. If you've got a little bit here, just rub it down against the frame, because usually there's some adhesive that gets on the sides, and the covering will bond to that. There we go. Cut the rudder loose. And now we'll finish cutting out the wing. are all of your covered flying surfaces. Take your wing, flip it over, and right here, so you'll go 2 ribs in, so on this 3rd rib, just outside of this 3rd rib, cut diagonally from the rib out, like so, and that will make the wing be able to bend like that. I do the same thing over here. So if you notice the razor blade at the outside corner of that rib, so that side. Same thing right here. So we're going to bend the wing up like that. You'll have a pair of these dihedral gauges. They have a little notch here, and this notch is going to go up like so on your wing. So what I'm going to do, I'm just weighing the wing down with something so that it'll stay put. And now with this CA accelerator that I put in here, don't get it up against the covering or it will dissolve the 3M77. At this point, everything's secure. So we move over. Do the same thing on the other side. And there we go. You'll notice at this point that there's a little bit of a dip here. There are ways to tighten this up, but I don't think it's particularly critical to do so. Go ahead and take this wing saddle loose from your motor stick sheet. Now, these uprights, one is going to have an F on it, F for front. Carefully break these out of their plywood carrier sheets. Don't break the little fork goodies here. The one at the front, there's no front and back to this piece. But what we're going to do is slip this guy on here like so. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put glue up here in the top of this, little notch area right here. So that I can bond this aligned on the top of the motor stick. Make sure you don't get any glue down on the motor stick because you don't want this piece to stick to it. You want it to only stay attached here, and you want it straight up and down this way. While you're doing that, go ahead and do that same thing on the little fork here on the other one. As you can see, it's all the way up against the little ends here. And so this is the front. That is actually the front of the motor stick. But what's important right now for us to do this down. Get this as vertical as you can. Mine's not wanting to stay quite vertical. And now, there are notches front and back. Remember, this is the front of the wing mount. The sharper curved part of your wing goes at the front. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take glue right here. I'm going to lay that in place. And it should, sliding into that notch, it should just set right there. Now, what you want to do is make sure that this wing is not twisted like this or like this. It's very important that it not have any twist at all. And then we're going to glue the back. So you may have to jig it in place by resting something here and here, meaning canning goods or canned goods or whatever, to ensure, whatever's handy, ensure that these are parallel. In my case, they are slightly. Now you may wish to actually have the wing twisted very slightly this direction, so this part twisted up at a higher angle, and then this part slightly down, but only a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit. Lay your fuselage sideways like this. Actually, we'll put it this way. So the little triangle part is down. Take your carbon tail boom here and I'm going to use the end of the propeller blade here for reference because I want this propped up so that I end up with a little bit of left rudder. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put glue on the end here, lay this in place. There will be a kind of a notch in on top of the motor stick, and we want the carbon to lay firmly against that. So this is what that completed join should look like, and if you look sighting down, you can see I'm angled off this way a little bit. Now, set your motor stick down again. Actually, let's put the wing on it. We're going to lay this guy upside down on the table like so. And take your horizontal tail. Remember this part, so normally top, this is the part that's curved a little bit more. I'm going to flip this over so that's facing forward, and we're going to put glue only on the back of it. That way we can slide our horizontal tail all the way to the tip of that tail boom, and we have this tail not tilted relative to the wing. And now, you can hit that all with CA, accelerator again, if I'm careful. And there we go. Flip this upright. Take your vertical tail here. And we're just going to glue it in place in front of the stab, just like that. And you want to try to have it straight up and down relative to the stab, just like that. And there we go. Now at this point you can slide your propeller assembly. The prop shaft goes down, you slide it on. That looks great. The last thing that you want to do is take that piece of wire and use a pair of pliers to punch this into the fuselage like that. And notice I'm swept back at that angle. Now pull it back out. Squirt glue, plenty of it, where you push that in. Stick it back in. And now, take a pair of wire cutters, leave about 3/4 of an inch sticking out here. So now that we have finished the assembly of the airplane, we need to secure the wing, but we need to check the center of gravity of the airplane before we do that. So the first thing to do is that we're going to show you a couple of ways to mount the wing, or rather to secure the wing. So one is to take your rubber that is supplied with the kit, and so you can tie a little loop like so, and then tie a knot here. And this will give you a very nice rubber band that you can use to secure the wing. We'll show you how to do that here in just a second. So first of all, you snip the little tabs off of it, and you'll want to make a second one. You can slide the knot around a little bit. And now to use those, pop the wing off, and what we'll do is we'll slide these over the motor stick. We can slide the wing back on here, and all we're doing is we're going to take the little tabs here from the rubber band and slide them up here. Make sure these are on the top and not on the bottom. If they're on the bottom, they'll run into your rubber motor, and the rubber motor will not unwind correctly. So we carefully slide the back down and then loop that over. And now you have a removable wing that you can slide back and forth. Next, you're going to want to weigh out a rubber motor. So what we want is a 25.5 inch strand here, or sorry, 25.25. And this does vary slightly, so the best way to do this is weigh it with a scale. Now if your airplane comes out fairly light, you'll actually want the 080 rubber that we sell, because this will actually prove to be a little much power, although you can repitch the propeller by twisting the blades to get a slightly higher pitch angle, and it'll slow your propeller down. Either size of rubber, that's probably not a bad idea. So what we're going to do is we're going to weigh this, and it says here that it's 1.518, 1.52, so we'll snip a little off. And now we're down to 1.48. Now, that being said, you will probably have to snip it down further if you're going to use this airplane in competition, because you're allowed 1.5 grams of rubber, and these O-rings are included in that weight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip 2 O-rings on here, and then we'll reweigh. Now we're up to 1.57, so we have to snip a little more off. 1.515. And there we are, about 1.497 is about where we want to be. Now what you'll want to do is take your rubber lubricant and get just a slight residue of it on one strand of the rubber. And what we're going to do is we want to tie this knot as close to the end of the rubber as possible. And now put a dab of glue on that knot before it tries to slip. Tie in a second knot, and there we go. So that's ready to use. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and squirt some lubricant on there. Okay, now that we've weighed out a motor, let's go ahead and weigh our airplane. I think this one has come in fairly heavy, so it's going to probably be about 8.5 grams, I think. We'll have to verify that. And we're about 8.2. So if you were under 7 grams, which is possible with some of these, depends on the weight variation. I grabbed some of the heavier wood out of the box for this build. But you could put the clay right here, because as it is, you're going to need to slide the wing pretty far forward. So these airplanes tend to come out a little bit on the nose heavy side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip the O-ring over that wire pin at the back, and I'm going to slip the O-ring at the front onto my propeller shaft. In this case, the propeller shaft is a little bit tight. So what I'm going to do is just open up this hook ever so slightly right here. And that allows me to slip my O-ring on more easily. And there we go. So with that, now we're looking to balance the airplane about 3/8 inch forward of the trailing edge of the wing. And I got it exactly right, but just to give you an example of it not being right, slide the wing back. See, now we're balancing way up here. That's about 3/4 of an inch. So we slide the wing back forward. And there we are, about 3/8 of an inch. Actually needs to come forward a little bit more. And there we are. So with that, the airplane is balanced, and now we can go give it some test glides. Okay, apologies for my messy living room back there. I have kids. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to test glide this airplane before we wind it up. So hold the airplane about here, a little behind the center of gravity, and we're just going to slide it into the air. Like that. Now, what we saw is that the airplane had a smooth glide to the left. If it did not glide correctly to the left, you could take this rudder or attach a little piece of tape to the back of it and bend it to the left to give you your left rudder. If it's turning too tightly to the left, you could bend that to the right. The other thing to check if it cranks in hard to the left is to make sure that we have a little bit of positive twist here on this wing. If the airplane had died with the center of gravity set, if the airplane were diving when we launched it, we would want to put a little shim under the leading edge of the wing, so a scrap piece of balsa slide under right there. On the other hand, with the center of gravity set there, if the airplane had stalled, we would go back here and we would put a shim under the back of the wing mount. Since it did neither, we can go ahead and we can wind the airplane up and we can fly it. So the next thing that we want to do is wind the airplane up. So what I'm going to do is take the torque meter I have. This is a convenient way to hold the rubber motor and wind it off of the airplane. Now what I will do is remove the rubber motor. onto the airplane using the O-rings that we have, not the rubber itself. This is one of the winders that we sell. And so I'm going to crank in a few turns here, probably about 100 turns. Now once the motor is fully wound, grasp it by the O-ring. Now hold the airplane by the propeller and the propeller shaft, just like this, and slip the O-ring onto the propeller shaft. Now take the rubber motor, the O-ring at the back, so we're grasping it by the O-ring, leaving about the O-ring sticking out, and then we can simply slip it right over that hook. Now the airplane is ready to be flown. So what we're looking for is we're looking for a smooth, steady takeoff, and we want the airplane to glide, to circle around to the left. So what I'm going to do is let go of the propeller first and then slide the airplane into the air. I don't throw it, I just slide it into the air. Okay, so since I saw that the airplane circled around very hard to the left and kind of dove in, I'm going to slide a piece of the scrap 1/16 balsa from the spar sheet right here under the front of the wing, just like that. The other thing is, since the airplane was circling very tightly, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to pinch right here next to this dihedral brake rib on the outside. I'm going to pinch, pushing my fingernail into that spar. And if you notice now, this spar is at a little bit higher angle than the one at the back. And that will help hold that wing up so the airplane will circle around nice and flat. So let's see what that looks like. Looking better. So two things I noticed. One is I shoved the nose on incorrectly and it got loose, so I hardened that up with some super glue, the wooden part, and so the propeller was actually starting to point down a little bit. So that part should not happen to you, because I'm going to modify this on the production kits. The other thing is the airplane's still circling pretty aggressively to the left, so you could add some tape here to provide right rudder. I'm just going to pinch the top of the rudder in here, and so what I'm trying to do is get a little bit of right rudder bent in there just to open up that turn a little bit. And so now I can take this airplane and off it goes, and that looks much better. I hand wound this back up to get a single row of knots, because we're going to run this around the living room one more time. What you should know is this motor, if you wind it correctly, it'll take a little over 1,000 turns at full power. Now one thing you'll notice is the airplane's already starting to show a little bit of a climb, and so that means it's going to be a little bit overpowered if you build it to a fairly low weight. So you may want to switch to different rubber size. We do have 080 rubber for sale in our store, and those of you that are adventurous could go all the way down to 1/16 rubber, which may prove a little better. But one thing you can do is twist these blades by actually grasping the hub and right here and twisting really hard, and that'll permanently deform them to a higher pitch. Now you need to make sure you get them to the same angle. And if you have trouble with that, we do sell a propeller pitch gauge, which allows you to get those settings a little more accurate. But let's make one last flight with this airplane. Check my settings here that I've put in. And by the way, when you pinch things like that, sometimes you will have to glue it because it'll crack through. Don't worry about that. It's a common adjustment that I and everybody else in the model airplane world make regularly. And that looks beautiful. Just beautiful. Okay, so this has been the build video and basic flight trimming instructions for the Junior Flyer by J&H Aerospace. Hope you've enjoyed this. Hope this helps you get your airplane flying well. Any questions, comments you have, concerns, etc., post them in the comments section below, and we will hopefully see you at some indoor venues flying these airplanes. See ya. Hi, I'm Josh Finn. This is Hope. We are J&H Aerospace.
If you like this video, hit the like button.
Also, how about subscribe to our channel and check out jhaerospace.com for new free flight products and all of the tooling that you'll need to build them.
Thanks for watching.